because man's task is to make the earth after the model of heaven. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Man's project is to heavenize the earth. Man is made to transform the world from glory to glory, to take hold of it and break it down and remake it after the image of heaven.
Welcome back to the Reformed Reset. My name is Grant, and joined with me is my beautiful wife, Ericha, the weaker vessel.
Hello, everyone.
We are part of Take Hold Studios, everybody. If you would, please subscribe to the YouTube channel right now and hit the bell so that way you get notified every time we put out a new episode. And go to the website, check out the Take Hold blog. You can also check out the store that we have. There's a link in the description below that you can that will take you there. And if you buy anything from the store, please post a picture and tag us in it. We'll share it. We'll tell you how beautiful you look. And
if you're a woman.
If you're a woman.
Not if you're a man.
We'll call you handsome if you're a man. And also in podcast world, please subscribe and also leave a review. We would greatly appreciate it. All of those things help us out tremendously. So please do that. Make sure that you also are availing yourself here on the YouTube channel of the Weaker Vessels Kitchen.
Yes. We've got some great content coming out. Have a guest on our latest podcast, and Amy.
You guys are on a roll.
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty well. With being consistent, I mean.
Yes, you're doing
It's a real struggle for two stay-at-home moms.
You're being consistent, and it's very practical ways that you can develop the biblical femininity that God's called you to.
Thanks.
And it's good stuff.
Thanks.
So, anyway, anything else to announce?
I don't think so.
Should I share my blog?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and do that.
I had a blog recently published on Theopolis Institute. So, if you guys want to, you can go over to Theopolis Institute and go to their Theopolis blog and check out article that I got published on there called When Our Men Sing.
It was a great article.
So, anyway, yeah, go do that. Support Theopolis too. Go subscribe to their podcast, YouTube channel.
I mean, if you like us, then I don't know why you're not already listening to them, because they're like 1,000 times better than whatever we're doing here. So.
Oh my gosh, totally. But yeah, we love what Theopolis Institute does.
Yes.
And
I mean, hence the James Jordan at the beginning, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, they obviously inspire us.
If you didn't know who that was at the beginning, that's James Jordan, and him and Peter Lightheart started Theopolis. So anyway, I know some people don't. A lot of people have asked, who is that at the beginning? So
well, now you know.
Now you know. Well, anyway, on this episode, what are we doing?
We're going to talk about when marriage is hard.
So something not many people experience.
That would almost be funny if it was
I don't know,
not so sad, actually. Yeah, so everyone, if you're married, you've experienced a rough time at some point in your marriage.
Right.
Everyone does. It's pretty normal, actually.
Yep.
And if you're not married, this is probably a great podcast for you to listen to.
Yeah,
It'll help you keep your expectations realistic.
That's true, too. But I hope you take notes, especially if you're not married yet. Yeah. Because you probably may not apply this immediately. If you're married, I hope some of this you can apply right away.
Yeah.
But if you're single, you may not. So write it down so you don't forget, because there are a lot of things that God teaches you as you go through the years and just have to deal with conflict, differences.
Right.
So where do we begin?
Marriage is God's design.
Amen.
God made man, and he made woman for man to be his helper. And that is God's wonderful design. And when we try and invert any of those roles or try and mar, what the image is supposed to look like, it's going to get really bad.
And that's what our culture is doing right now in
Yes.
every way it can.
Yes.
It's trying to destroy marriage, destroy womanhood, destroy
Masculinity,
manhood, destroy parenthood. I mean, you name it. They're trying to ruin it and upend it. But it's important to know that marriage is not a social construct. Right? It's not man-made. God instituted it in the first couple of chapters of the Bible. And that's important because that means that every man or every husband and wife is responsible to God, the one who actually has established their relationship. Christian or non-Christian. The institution still came from God.
Yeah.
And if it was man-made, then we could take it or leave it. We could change the roles of it, right? You could do that.
Right.
But because it's not.
Well, and they have made it legal to have two women marry each other and two men marry each other, and God knows nothing of that kind of union.
Exactly.
That's not marriage. No, God does not recognize that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something and it was kind of brilliant and I lost it. Keep talking. It'll come back to me.
So, as far as conflict.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say.
All right, there we go.
Sometimes it happens quick, sometimes not.
Never know.
God hates divorce.
Yeah, that's in the Old
So, like,
Testament.
when we talk about marriage, you also have to talk about divorce, I feel like, because God hates divorce.
True.
And he does give us an outline as to reasons why we can biblically divorce someone, but Jesus said, like, God gave you divorce for the hardness of your hearts.
Yeah.
It was your hardness of your hearts, and that's why divorce exists.
Right.
And I know I've had great friends who've had, issues in their marriage who've talked about that particular verse and how that really helped them, because when dealing with a spouse, a lot of the times you are in a bad way because of the hardness of your heart. It has something to do with your spouse or their sin against you. It has to do with the hardness of your heart.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's very good.
So.
And that's a very long conversation just on divorce that could be.
Yeah,
had
that's just very brief overview. But it's important to know that God hates marriage ending.
Right. And that sin is the only reason why something like divorce exists.
Exactly. And we can talk about divorce some other time. Yeah. That's not a fun topic to talk about necessarily.
No, it's not. But I mean, it is important, especially for those who, probably more so, especially for those who got divorced before they were Christian and then became Christian. Usually the ones that really need to deal with what happened and why. Because a lot of times those divorces are not, they don't happen on biblical grounds, you know, and so they have to work through that. But anyway.
Right.
So if you've been married a couple of months or 13 years,
couple of days even,
you know that the person you're married to is not exactly like you. They are a different human. Nor are they
sinless.
And they're not sinless on top of it. So they differ with you on preferences, the kinds of food they like, movies they like, places they like to go, opinions on everything. But that also they're sinful. So anyway, so those things create conflict. So what do we do? What do we do in conflict? What's like number one thing we should do in conflict?
We should do or we do?
Oh yeah, that's two different questions. That's true. I guess should do, or we can tackle both in there.
I think it depends on the kind of conflict it is, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
But like a Christian response to a disagreement shouldn't be to exaggerate the issue, you know? You never, I can't believe you like blue drapes. I really wanted gray. Like, a lot of arguments are really dumb.
It's so true.
Most arguments are very, very dumb.
I think from the outset of any conflict, the reason why God instituting marriage and covenant is so important is because then you know that there is no giving up, right?
Oh, yeah. When you go into marriage, there is no plan B.
So whether... right, and so then when that's carried to a fight or a conflict, there is no like, well, I'm giving up on this fight and just whatever. You go, no, right. I'm with this person until I die. I'm covenanted to them. I've made a vow, which I know nowadays your word means like nothing anymore.
Well,
like,
not for a Christian, at least. It should for a Christian.
It should for a Christian, but in our culture, right?
In society, yeah.
Promises, vows, and all
contracts,
that. They're just for fun. It's just a fun time.
Yep.
And
no, but that's good because your attitude then should be to remain in fellowship.
Yes, that's good.
Your attitude should be like, we're going to be in marriage forever. Let's try to make it as conflict free as possible. That means remaining in fellowship through good times, bad times. When they really have bad taste in drapes, you got to stay in fellowship. So a lot of times it's communication. I think most of the time it's communication and some pride mixed in there probably.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just are like a little child and we don't love to talk to the other person who's making us angry, right?
Well, yeah,
I'm not going to talk to you right now. I can't talk to you right now.
Yeah, we want to sit in our sin. We want to sit in our little pity party.
Yeah.
And just sulk in it. And so we decide to not talk, or we don't want to open up. We don't want to explain ourselves. We don't want to hear the other person.
Right.
Because we'd rather just sit in our little
And
pity
sometimes
party.
the issue is a little bit bigger than drapes. Sometimes the issue is I want a baby, but my spouse doesn't. And you just can't, you can't agree on that. So you're Christians, go to your pastors, go to your elders, talk with them about it, seek wise counsel. The worst thing you can do is to just keep harping and nagging on a spouse.
Yep.
That's not going to increase fellowship. That's not going to bring about any good things. So,
No trickery.
yeah, because that can happen too.
That could happen too.
What I'm saying is, like, go to your pastor. If you really
Yeah.
can't figure it out, go to a pastor that hopefully you trust.
And I know this should go without saying for a Christian, but you need to be in prayer. You know, we've seen so many things, as I'm sure you guys watching, listening have too. We've seen so many things, so many prayers answered, you know, and like Jesus said about the persistent widow, you know, and we know that the Lord does want to hear us, and he wants to give us wisdom, give us the Spirit. And so we need to be before the Lord in prayer about this issue. And we need to ask, Lord, if this is not your will, please change my heart. Help me to see, you know, your wisdom in what I don't want right now. Like, I don't want this. Peter Lightheart, again, said something really helpful about prayer. He said, God always answers our prayers, and it's always yes, or I have something better.
Right.
And so it's not happening. You're like, oh, that's a no. You have to think about it differently. You have a good father, and what he's telling you is yes, or I have something better. You have to see his answer as something better. But anyway, I would say prayer is a huge one.
Yeah.
So what about dealing with conflict in a more gender-specific way? So, like, what encouragement would you give to women?
Oh my goodness.
And, you know, in that conflict, like, here's your tendencies.
Well, I have mastered this, so let me tell you all. Women are more emotional, pretty much always. Even, like, I don't consider myself a very emotional person, but when it comes to you, I am, right? You can hurt my feelings. You can do things that no one else can do to me.
I have that superpower.
You have that kind of intimacy with me, so things that you do affect me way more than anyone else, and it should be that way.
Yes.
We should be that intimate with each other.
Right.
So, instantly, for women who have had bad relationships in the past with either boyfriends or fathers or whatever, I think we can put up like a wall, right? Like, the instantly you hurt me, so I'm going to push you away. I'm going to not listen to you, and that's like a self-preservation mechanism kind of that we.
Right.
And all that does is just, like, when you put that wall up, is it impedes fellowship, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the opposite of what we should be trying to do in that situation.
100%. Right. It's you hurt my, like, let's say my heart, right? You hurt my heart, so I'm going to put a wall in front of it. That's right. You hurt.
If you don't know what that is, it's fine.
Yeah. And so you put up that wall because I can't trust you again near this thing here, this heart of mine.
Right.
And so I got to keep you at a distance.
So for those women, it should be recognizing that your husband is not your enemy. Like, if he's physically hurting you, that's a different story. But I'm talking about in a Christian marriage where your husband just said something that maybe you took it the wrong way, or maybe he could have said it more carefully, but, like, it is not like an actual issue where you're being harmed.
Right. And you got married knowing you're both sinners.
Yeah.
Or at least you should have.
Yeah.
Or at least you know now that you're in a conflict.
Now you're there.
Oh, he's the sinner. And so, he's not your enemy. You know, obviously, like you said, physical abuse is one thing. But when it's just sin that happens, it's not because they're enemy, because they're attacking you. Yeah. It's just they're a sinner, and we're still on this side of glory. And so you're going to have to deal with junk. So
because of that, I'm assuming most women nowadays are probably that way, right? It's either self-preservation or it's the opposite, or it's the like apologizing anytime he gets upset, or you perceive him to be upset because you are scared you'll lose him.
Yes.
Either one is just very dangerous. It can be very dangerous.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
To a marriage. So rather than like if you can see that in yourself when that happens to you, take a breath, say a prayer, like, Lord, help me not, say what I'm about to say right now, because I need to not say that.
Season my words with salt, Lord, please.
Yeah. And then sometimes the best thing to do is to just be quiet. Don't say it. Don't say what you're wanting to say, oftentimes because you are hurt, you want to hurt the other person.
Yes.
That's the worst case scenario, right?
Right.
Because his words hurt you, you want to hurt him back.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely not a Christian.
Eye for an eye.
Yeah, that's not a
tooth.
Christian idea to want to harm someone.
No, you don't repay evil for evil,
Mm-hmm.
right? You pay evil with good. So, very
Yeah.
good. I would.
This
so,
might be a window into our marriage. I don't know.
this is never. I don't know. We said a lot of these are things that we've learned and had to just practice throughout the years.
Yeah.
And it is the whole gamut of something that really, where I really hurt your feelings, or I really was like, oh boy, and then how do I get back into this? And the worst is when my pride kicks in, and I think I didn't say anything wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, you're ridiculous.
Your feelings are stupid.
You don't need those anyway. Get that out of here.
Right.
I'm glad they're hurt. Get them out of here.
Yeah, we can do away.
I've never said that. Have I ever said that to you? I'm glad they're hurt. I don't think
We
I've
don't
ever
need to
said
air
that.
out all our dirty laundry. We're good.
So, for men, and I'll just speak from my experience, I guess, of trying to handle conflict in our marriage in a more, godly way, is the masculine imperative to take responsibility.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and this is very difficult, not take responsibility for just the fault of it all in a way that leads you to think you are sinless, right? But that's so delicate because your pride is going to definitely want to cast blame. And this is the sin of Adam, right? The woman you gave me, it wasn't my fault. But
and typically when a man does lead in that way, right, he just owns his sin in the argument or whatever.
And owns the responsibility for reconciliation.
Typically women are sure to follow.
Right.
When you are humble and you try, and I know I hurt your feelings, I'm so sorry, I could have said it better, or whatever. Typically it's like, well, I'm sorry because I overreacted and that was not okay, that I disrespected you in that way. Usually that does go that way.
Yes. And that's very good. It is good if the man is the first one to solve the issue, to initiate reconciliation. Because again, he's representative of Christ, right? Christ is the head and the bride is the woman. And so in a marriage, the man is supposed to imitate and be the example of Christ.
And the woman usually causes the trouble.
And the woman causes the trouble. She said it, folks. But so if he initiates, even if she is at fault or something, the man can still initiate fellowship, exactly, and start that process of reconciliation.
Well, and that's a situation. Maybe the wife is 100% at fault for whatever the situation is, but the husband can still pursue fellowship with her, right? Still trying to work through whatever it is that's going on because he desires fellowship with someone who maybe is just being a little sinner at that point in their marriage.
Yeah. Another thing that
and vice versa. Like, I have had so many friends whose husbands have really sinned against them, like adultery, like really hard things.
Right.
And the wife stuck by them. My friend stuck by them.
Right.
They were 0% at fault, probably.
Yeah.
And yet it was the wife who was like, but marriage is forever, and I'm going to pursue fellowship with this person who did this huge sin against me. And God blessed it, and now their marriage is amazing.
Right. Yeah.
It goes both ways.
And that's the thing. Being committed to following God's ways is, how could you expect blessing in any other path?
Right.
So, that is the narrow way that you go, hey, this is tough, and this doesn't make any sense to anyone else in the world except Christians, but this is God's way. This is the narrow way he's called me to, but that's...
And when we talk about, like, pursuing fellowship, like, all true fellowships, like, flows from our fellowship with God the Father.
Yes.
So Jesus was the one who made a way for us to be in fellowship with the Father. And so that is how a husband ought to act, a wife ought to act.
Yeah.
We can be Christ-like to each other, right? But there is no true fellowship outside of being in fellowship with God first, right? So what we're
100%.
not saying is that fellowship with each other is primary and you can sin against God so long as the two of you are in fellowship. Because I know that there are situations where that could be true, right? Like,
yes,
I want to watch porn with you. Maybe you want to be in fellowship, so you think, well, I should do that, but that means that you're not in fellowship with God,
Well,
You know what I'm trying to say? There are situations like that where you just want to
totally.
make someone happy.
Right. Well, and that probably happens in even ways where people aren't doing something like illicit. But
It's just an example,
that
y'all.
was a good one. But
And I've heard women ask me that question many times. So,
reckon.
yeah.
But Christ's blood removes sin and brings peace. Period.
Yes.
So if you try to have fellowship and try to bring peace without his blood coming in and washing things clean, you don't have peace.
That's what I was trying to say, but I don't think I did.
You have a false peace. You did, though. You have a false peace. You have, right? You have something kind of like peace, but you're not actually going to have peace. And the same dragon is going to rear his head
Right.
again pretty quick if
Yep.
you don't actually wash it away with Jesus' blood.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you won't sin again, but I'm
Right.
saying that one situation, that instance,
Right.
the only thing is you have to plead Jesus' blood, right, to wash it clean.
And for single people who are listening to this is why it is so important that you talk before you're married.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like, you cannot over communicate before you're married. Talk about everything: finances, kids, education,
Yep.
like literally everything, so that the expectations are explicit. You both know exactly what it is that you are getting into, and there are no massive surprises later on when you find out that, you know, she wants, you know, not to have kids, and you're like, well, I thought we were going to have a bunch of kids.
Yeah, or because and it can, you would be surprised at what random thing actually means that much to you.
Yes.
And that could be a certain holiday you celebrate.
Yeah.
And with who and how you celebrate
Yep.
it. And that's okay. Like, I mean, it could be sinful, but I mean, generally those things are just family traditions or whatever.
Something as simple as like what kind of dinner you're going to make every night, right?
Yeah.
Men have very strong opinions on like what they want to eat at night, and sometimes women are like, but I love salad. I love a salad, and if I eat anything more than salad, I'm going to get big hips. So and he's like, but I need something more than a salad to make me like, those can be huge things in a marriage.
Energy for work. You can't do that off.
Those can be huge things though, you know.
Mix.
Talk about everything.
Yes. No, that's really good. And plus, when you do that before you're married, it just gives you like 10-hour-long phone calls, and that's always really fun.
It's true.
So it's the good times, you know.
It's true.
Another thing that I've been thinking about this lately, and it's about just how you talk as a man, more specifically. But this probably applies across to women too. You can speak to that as well, babe.
Okay.
But you know, James talks a lot about the tongue and how the tongue can light a forest fire, essentially, right? With the smallest little spark. Out of it comes blessings and cursings, all this kind of thing. But there is a way for a man to light his wife or his kids on fire with his words, and that doesn't always mean rage and anger. I know the fruits of the Spirit, one is gentleness, but that will even look different if you're a man or a woman. That's not going to look exactly the same.
Right.
But the gentle speech of a man is going to be self-controlled, firm on biblical principles, and humble. But a man who is speaking really quietly, softly, but whining, and you know, that like that kind of
patronizing,
you can be real quiet and real soft-spoken, and you are setting ablaze everyone around you with your disgusting
or sarcastic. Like when we first got married, like you just spoke to me like you'd speak to your friends, and I was like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm
You
not
can't
your
talk to me that
dude.
way.
Yeah.
I'm not your I'm your wife.
Yeah, I
It's
remember
different.
that being a little jolting too. Like, well, this is how I talk to everybody.
And I was like,
And
not
she's
to
like,
me.
well, I'm not everybody. And I'm like, what does this mean?
And this doesn't mean you can't laugh and poke fun at each other. We do all the time. Like anyone who knows us knows that we are always making fun of each other. Not in like degrading ways, but just like, I can't walk by a rack of clothing without all of it falling off the rack. And Grant just laughs every time because it's just ridiculous. I don't even touch the clothing and it falls off the hangers.
It's pretty miraculous,
But like,
you guys.
this is how you can have like a fun or playful marriage, and you're not like demeaning who I am as a person. Like,
Right.
oh, you stupid klutz, I can't believe you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it is, you know?
Right. Like with a guy, I can be like, way to go, dum dum, or
Right.
whatever, but I'm not going to say that
Never
to
say
you.
that to me. Yeah.
And I just had to learn, because I realized, okay, well, are we ever going to laugh together? And it's like, yeah, man, there's more ways. And so I just learned how to still joke with you and laugh with you. And then as soon as I'm with a friend that's a guy,
Yeah.
right? You just turn it back on, and it's fun because guys joke differently than girls do, and specifically husband and wife. But yeah, that's a very good point. But words, you're talking about sarcasm.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage...
Lots of memories just flashback about the...
So true. Actually, I just... Flashback was like us walking in Target, and I'm behind you, and I just see things falling off.
I don't know how. Maybe I'm a witch or something. I don't know. Just kidding.
Suffer thee not a witch.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just want to encourage the men in that way as far as speech goes, because you can still be firm and address issues and stuff like that, and that's gentle. That is you being gentle. Sarcasm. What was the other term instead of sarcasm that you used? I don't remember. I don't know, but like just being whining. Well, what about when I want to blah 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 or something like that? Like what you're doing as a man, as the head of your home, there is setting ablaze everyone around you.
Yeah.
You are not cultivating them. You're not tending that home at all. You are tearing it down. With those words, and that's the other thing too, is like the me time thing. This is where men have a real issue.
Yep. Is
when you go out and you do your job and you come home and it's like, well, I just want to drink beer, eat nachos, and watch the game, and it's like
a little bit of Mark Driscoll coming out there.
But probably, but like part of taking responsibility, part of taking responsibility of your garden and tending and keeping it means that just your job is like that won't cut it.
That's an aspect of what you're supposed to do, but your family's another thing that you need to tend to.
Right, and it doesn't mean there's any like you never watch a game or whatever, but you have other responsibilities and duties that need to be addressed too. And if your only response is, well, what about me time? You need to repent of that attitude and go,
because your life isn't about you.
Right. It's about the glory of God and building his kingdom.
Right. So that's a pretty self-absorbed, selfish attitude to have as a Christian.
Yeah.
But if moms did that? What if you're like, oh my gosh, I've had these kids all day long and now I'm just going to like hide away in my room and watch some Netflix. And it's like 2:30, you know? Like we don't do that. That's not how Christians act.
It's such a hard day.
Shouldn't be how Christians act.
Right.
It's selfishness.
So even in the conflict, men... you must be aware of the speech, the way that you're talking to. And humility in the conflict is huge too, because humility will determine how quick resolution happens. And not that I speak from experience, but pride will just prolong everything because it will keep you from admitting any fault you may have.
Well, and even just wanting to be in fellowship.
Right.
Like there's a point in every argument where you're like, I don't even want to be in fellowship with you right now. And that's a sin too.
Yeah.
But likewise with the ladies' words, women can be, once again, I don't know, naggy, fussy, patronizing, disrespectful. All of it's pretty ugly, you know? We're supposed to submit to our husbands in all things. We're supposed to not be the nagging wife who chases their husbands to the roof of the house so he wants to get away from us. It can be a habit that you get into, learning how to like talk to your husband in a bad way, and sometimes you don't even notice it. Sometimes you don't even notice a bad pattern, and maybe it looks like you asking your husband, was that disrespectful? Was that too far? Was that joke too far? I didn't mean to take it too far. I think maybe it was too far.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You just reminded me of something that's really helpful. Just period at all times, but definitely in conflict too, is asking questions. Kind of like what you just said, like asking or addressing the issue in the form of a question rather than just
project.
Rather than just projecting. That can do wonders. And you
like, why do you think we can't go to my parents' house for Christmas? What's in your head there? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Rather than, we always go to your parents for Christmas every single year, and this is the one year we were supposed to go to my family.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Perfect example.
Yeah.
And there was another thing. It escaped me now. But
women are great at talking usually. So talking isn't typically the problem. It's just how you talk that can be the problem.
Yeah. And I think men are good at shutting out and just walking away from the situation. And so what they need to do is go and address it, but then also address it the right way.
I was going to say, Scripture talks about women being quiet in a gentle spirit and winning our husbands without a word, right?
Yeah.
And I think those are very hard things for women to do usually. Quiet, gentle spirit, and then, being quiet and winning them over without a word. Without a word, what do you mean? Like, women talk all the time. How do you win someone without a word? That's so unnatural sometimes,
Probably why it's in there, right?
That's why we need the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. What else?
I don't know what you were going to say.
I don't either.
Anyway, so all this to say...
I'm trying not to just get into general advice. I'm trying to still think conflict-wise.
Well, and sometimes, like I said before, there are some real genuine hurts that are far beyond just, she was kind of rude to me this morning before she got her coffee.
Well, and
that's a simple thing to move past, or it should be for Christians, right? There are much bigger hurts.
Love covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah, and sometimes those sins are grievous sins.
And another hard thing too in all of this will be following what 1 Corinthians 13 says about love not keeping a record of wrongs. Because the conflict that you're in the midst of might be something that has happened a ton before. It might have happened several times in the past. But you forgave them then. I know it's the same thing and new, but you got to treat it almost like it's brand new. Don't not address it. You don't ignore it or think, well, it said don't keep record of wrong, so I just ditch this. No. You need to address it. And because of the past experiences, you should be able to better address it this time. There should be
a lot of practice learning how to forgive, so it should be pretty easy for you by now.
Right. There should be growth and maturity. And
I want to once again say this explicitly. If the sin that you are quote unquote forgiving is a crime, call the cops.
100%.
Like, if it is an actual crime, call the cops. We're not saying just sit in your room and wait for him to abuse you tomorrow morning too. Forgive him in the meantime. No, call the cops.
No, God's law specifically differentiates between sin and crimes. Coveting, sin.
Yeah.
Murder, crime.
Right.
So, physical abuse, crime, whatever. Yeah. So, if the authorities need to get involved.
Forgetting to turn the dryer on, not a crime.
Is it a sin?
Well, it could be.
If he promised he would.
It could be, yes.
Yeah, could be.
But, use some wisdom there, Right. We're not at all advocating for...
That's very good.
You to forgive crimes as willy-nilly and not get authorities involved.
No, definitely not. And if it's something that is... grounds for divorce, we're not going to really get into it. We said
call your pastor.
Then you need to call your pastor, and you need to that's going to take some time. That's going to take a lot of counsel and thinking through, because sometimes, like with adultery, trust is so broken that the marriage is broken. And marriages a lot of times can heal from even something like adultery, which is grounds for divorce,
right?
But sometimes not. You know what I mean?
And this is where you have to, and I've counseled so many women through adultery, and it's true. You as the wife, who are the Christian especially, or the husband who's the Christian, I guess, have to be willing to forgive even adultery, have to be willing to even try and bring about fellowship first. That doesn't necessarily mean it's always possible. I'm not saying that, but if your attitude is just relief because you're done with them, that's not a Christian attitude at all.
I think we already sort of hit on this too when we were talking about Jesus' blood bringing peace, but that fellowship needs to be a biblical fellowship too.
Yes.
Right? It's not like a brush it under the rug. Like, sin has to be addressed.
Right.
And that's how fellowship really happens. And with forgiveness too, that's a two-way street, right? There is an exchange that needs to happen when someone is actually truly forgiven. And so that's something that needs to be sought after.
And that's that will not happen apart from a good, solid church counseling you in your marriage.
True.
Like, you're gonna need a city to help you.
That's good.
But I am so encouraged by friends that we do have who were willing to work on their marriage even through adultery, and are now their family's expanded and God's using them in his kingdom, and it's a testimony to just how powerful the gospel actually is.
That's good.
So,
men, just don't be so easily offended. You just
That's kind of women too, though.
Have it. That's
Just-
fine too.
And we should talk about this next, maybe. But the ability to just not care.
Right.
Christians.
Yeah.
Christians need to like grow in that virtue. I think.
A Christian ability to just not care.
Just don't care.
Because there's a lot that you should care about.
A lot you should care about.
There's so many little petty things that people get worked up about. And life would be just so much more jovial if you just didn't care. Just not a big deal.
Yep, it's true.
Just let it go. That's funny. That makes me think of the Proverbs 31 woman who could laugh at the
days to come.
The days to come.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Oh, and their troubles, the days. That's silly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Remember the resurrection at all times too. There is nothing in this world that can actually keep us down because of the resurrection. But it's only through the resurrection that new life comes out of death. And so the hope, even in a fight all the time, is that God brings resurrection, right? That's our whole life is lived in the resurrection. So there's no you can't, you'll never learn, you'll never, right? That should never enter a Christian's mind if you're actually living in light of the resurrection.
Right.
No, you can, and that's why I'm fighting for you, because I know that we can raise up out of this, because Jesus did.
Right.
And so that needs to also be the bedrock of any conflict in a marriage is the resurrection.
And root out bitterness.
Yeah. Bitterness is like a poison you have for someone else, but you drink it.
Yep.
Hoping it kills them.
Yep.
Like a poison you drink hoping it kills the other person. Oh, it's awful.
Well, we hope this was helpful.
Yes.
And just kind of a all over the map sort of
Grab
advice.
bag.
But hopefully it does help you.
Yes. Let us know if it did, or let us know if there's something that you thought about. Put a comment down below. We'd appreciate to hear from you.
Right.
So anyway, all right. Well, good stuff. Thanks for watching, and share it with a friend that you think may benefit from this and may be encouraged by it or helped by it. And until next time, take hold and reorder creation by first reforming your home. This has been the Reformed Reset.
But on the basis of grace and on the finished work of Jesus Christ, the project is back and forth, and the destiny of a new transformed world is assured.